Well, I'm back again, and glad to talk to you, and I hope I'm not boring you. I'm doing my best not to. But anyway, you always have the freedom, after what we were talking about last week, you have the freedom not to look. So you'll exercise that freedom, I hope. Today I'm talking about reincarnation. As again, it's something that came up in my earlier sessions with Shabaka. I never thought very much about that. I think in passing, I sort of accepted the notion of it, that it was interesting. But then it came up in my sessions with Shabaka that it's part of the journey of life on Earth. But that it's something that is voluntary, if you like. It's never imposed on us, that we always have free will. So nobody says to us, look, you must go back down there again. I say down there advisedly because we always think of Earth as being below and the higher regions and above us. But when we think of life on Earth as being part of the adventure, that we are spirit beings and that we come on Earth in order to ideally achieve growth in awareness or consciousness. Well, once I got into this, and once Shabaka brought it up, and of course that it is a fact and that it is open to us to partake in the process of reincarnation, that it makes great sense to me, and it made great sense to me immediately, of course, that the idea that we're not confined by the one lifetime. When you look at it, I think you could see that, well, it would be a very unfair thing, that so many people will come into Earth, and there's so many differences. Some people are disabled, some people are suffering from all sorts of difficulties with sight or hearing, or even mental disability. Others seem to have charmed lives. Everything seems to go absolutely without any problem for them, that they have plenty of money, they have exciting lives, they can have all the type of relationships that they wish for. That life can be like a continuing dance for them. And that would hardly make sense in the context of one lifetime, that it should be so unequal and so unfair. The notion then that we could have continuing lives, that in other words, that whatever we're trying to do with our life, that then we have the vehicle that we wish for in order to achieve that. It doesn't actually mean that if we choose, say, to come in some sort of disabled form, that it means that we're paying for whatever we did in another lifetime and making retribution for it and punishing ourselves for it. It doesn't actually mean that at all. It just means that we choose whatever vehicle that we think can best help our purpose in this life, which is essentially to find that freedom that we've been talking about, and to free ourselves from the separation from the unconditional loving energy. So it seems to be then, once we look at it in that way, that it's like a very simple idea, and we take away the thing that the compulsory thing, like that. Some of the stuff that I've come across over the years say that it is something, that it's like, there are rigid rule that we have to come back and to deal with things that have happened in the previous life. And my understanding from Shabaka that it isn't like that at all, you know, that would of course be going into this notion of punishment, which isn't part of and doesn't fit in with unconditional love. That we are essentially we're our own judges. And when we look at our evolution, if you like, and maybe then we see, right, it might help me to go back and just to live a particular type of life, perhaps to get into a particular type of environment. Maybe, for example, I might choose, you know, in looking at myself, I might see maybe that I was a bigoted sort of a person in a previous life, that I shut out all sorts of possibilities and opinions and made all sorts of severe judgments and so on. So I might actually come back into an environment exactly like that, into a very bigoted environment again, to choose to be with people who are like that. But maybe though that something will happen during the lifetime that will open me up to different ways of being, and that I come across people that I can see that they operate in that way, and that will help me to move beyond the limited boundaries of the way I was. Because one of the things that as I understand it, that when we move on, we carry with us our mindset, and we tend to gravitate towards those who are of similar mindsets. And it seems to be that the more that you have people who have a similar mindset together, and that there's no sort of interaction with other groups, then that it's harder to move out of that sort of restricted mindset. But when we come into Earth, that we're faced with all sorts of different ways of being, ways of thinking, different types of people and so on. The density of the physical world makes it easier for that. In the spirit world, you see, it's like everything is open, and it's easy to see where one is coming from in terms of the way of being. But in the physical world, because of the density of it, it's not easy to see what sort of a person we're dealing with immediately. That it allows a greater variety of the way of being. So I think that this seems to be part of the value of reincarnation, although I think it's not a brave thing to do, in a way, to choose to come back, you know, but yet it's sort of, if it shortens the journey to where we want to get to, well then it's worth it, I suppose. So, but just to remind ourselves really that we don't have to do it that way. We can choose maybe a longer route, one that takes longer, but eventually that we'll arrive anyway at the destination, destination which is to be ourselves truly, to free ourselves from that separation from our divine essence. So thank you again for listening to that, and we'll wait and have another chat maybe another day. Thank you.